Awesome. All right, we are ready to go. First and foremost, I just want to welcome everyone to today's webinar. We certainly have a great lineup of panelists, as you can see, and they are incredibly eager to share some of their best marketing automation tips with you in order to ultimately help you continue to plan and grow your business. I'm Will Jurgensen, the Director of Client Experience here at Keystone Click. And for the third time, I must be doing something right. They keep bringing me back. I will be your facilitator for today's panel discussion. This webinar series is brought to you by Keystone Click, a strategic digital marketing agency focused on helping our clients achieve their goals. Since 2008, we've worked with organizations nationwide, helping them bring clarity to their message and strategy to their growth. Please visit keystoneclick.com to learn more. So here's a little bit of the flow for today. We're going to start with some questions directed at our panelists that I will facilitate. Then we're going to open it up for questions from you. So if you have a question, please utilize the chat or the Q&A feature to submit your questions, and we're going to review all those questions. And at our designated time during our panel discussion, we're going to make sure that we get those questions asked. So at any point in time, though, throughout today's conversation, please submit any questions you might have. So let's go ahead and meet our panelists. Tamara Burkett. Tamara is a CRM consultant, virtual meeting producer, and the #1 best-selling business author who works with service-based business owners, helping them maximize their current CRM to get more sales. I think, Tamara, you're in the right place, right? Would you agree?
Oh, yeah.
She believes business is all about relationships and technology. And she believes businesses is all about relationships, and technology should help make relationship building easy. She artfully blends tech and relationship strategies to form a follow-up process her clients implement with ease. Tamara, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Up next, we have Scott Silver. Scott is a member of the product specialist team at SharpSpring and specializes in providing a balance of functionality and context so that he can help agencies use SharpSpring to its fullest potential. He loves working with marketers to devise an outside-the-box solutions that are tailored to the needs of their clients. Scott has spent over 10 years supporting SaaS platforms, most recently working with digital asset management software in Portland, Oregon. As a resident of Gainesville, Florida, not only is he nice and warm during this time of the year, but he also spends most of his free time testing out new recipes with his wife and pups and drinking large quantities of coffee. Scott, thanks so much for joining us today.
It's 60 degrees here. It is.
Oh yeah, is it?
Oh,
Why don't you go back on mute for a little bit? We're freezing our tails off in Wisconsin.
Right.
No, Scott, it's so great to have you. And up next, Melissa Blair. Melissa is a serial entrepreneur and a product of 2 entrepreneurial parents. Small business is in her DNA, which is also why she is so passionate about helping other entrepreneurs. Over the years, Melissa worked with a wide variety of software systems, and the problem she constantly ran into was that to build the perfect system, she had to duct tape together a variety of software to make it all work. On her quest to find the perfect system, Melissa partnered with an amazing team of developers to create the software that she had been looking for. A few years later, and they now have a software program that has been specifically designed to incorporate the tools that a small service-based business needs. It's also easy to use and at an affordable price. Melissa, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And finally, bringing up the tail of the team is Lori Hybe. Lori is the CEO and founder of Keystone Click, which is a strategic digital marketing agency serving B2B industrial manufacturers and professional service organizations across the US. Lori started the business in 2008, and as I'm sure you've seen on a variety of our other panel discussions, has a variety of great talents and expertise that she is going to provide. Lori, thanks so much for joining us as well.
Well, I'm excited to be here, and thanks for your little ad hoc add to my bio.
The other intros were so long.
It's not as sexy as everyone else's, but
Yeah.
I know. I want to hire him just to introduce me everywhere I go.
Right.
Oh, that's wonderful. All right. Well, I tell you what, enough about you guys. Let's get to the expertise and the knowledge that you have in your head. So, Tamara, we're going to start with you. And the first question that I have is a marketing automation system a CRM? Are they one and the same?
They're not. Not always. So not every CRM has a marketing automation component or capabilities, and not every marketing automation system is a CRM, although it may be marketed as one. So if you can imagine the CRM as being the trunk, and it's the essential component where you have the contact management features like segmenting and all those good things, tracking, task reminders, that makes up the core of what a CRM does. All the other components that deals with marketing, sales, customer support, all those are kind of like the limbs of the system, and those things were added on recently within the last, I'll say, 10 years, and it's speeding up, right? Adding more different components. So you can have a marketing automation tool, and it not be a CRM. So you just have to be careful of what you have and make sure it does what you need it to do for you.
Absolutely. Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. Lori, how does a business get started with marketing automation?
Great question. I'm sure a lot of people have that same question. And where I like to start with, regardless of what the question is what are the goals that you're trying to achieve?
Mhm.
And then you have to really figure out and evaluate which system is going to work best for you in helping you achieve those goals. Are you going to be integrating a couple of different softwares like Tamara alluded to a little bit, or are you just going to use one tool that has everything in one place? Lots of options out there. The next thing I'd say, probably one of the most important things, is to have a really clean list that you are working with. We've all heard the phrase garbage in, garbage out. If you've got a messy list, the system is not going to produce the results that you're looking for. And last, and I'm just going to say this is very broad because there's way more steps involved than first, next, last, is that whatever it is that you're trying to do, start with the end in mind. Know what it is that you're trying to achieve and start there, and then work backwards to where it is that first step is that needs to be instilled in order to get the wheels in motion.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of shaking heads there. I think we would be a mutual agreement. All right, Scott, it's your turn to take a whack here. How does marketing automation increase the human aspect of sales and marketing?
Yeah, another great question there. So this is something, philosophical with marketing and marketing automation, and something I feel pretty strongly about as well. A lot of people, when they're getting started with marketing automation, they look at the technologies involved and they see a lot of the automated processes. So things like emails being sent automatically, the segmentation happening automatically. And sometimes I think that, people will think, okay, what this is doing is this is making it so I don't have to be part of that process. And sometimes they also worry that, it's going to take away that human aspect, which, as we know, is kind of integral to marketing nowadays. Marketing in general has shifted from, where it was 15, 20 years ago, where it's sending as much content out kind of into the void as you can, hoping that you connect, to now where it's a lot more of a kind of meet in the middle. You're trying to get as much information, with the people you're trying to market to, so you can actually connect to them, relate to them. So I think that, really marketing automation gets rid of a lot of the kind of inefficient parts of the process and really makes it much more efficient. So connecting systems, getting you that information, so that really, it's not replacing the human aspect. It's actually kind of implementing it and giving you more time to focus on the human aspect without kind of having to worry about things like database maintenance, making sure, the processes are running correctly. So really just kind of giving the marketer more breathing room to actually reach out with that human touch.
So you're saying the machines haven't officially taken over yet?
Not yet. They're getting there though.
That's good. That's good. Well, it's good to remind ourselves that there is that human element still, heavily involved on the back end. That's great.
Right.
All right, Melissa, moving on to you. Why does marketing automation seem so complicated?
And it can be. For one of the reasons, as we talked about a little bit earlier, is sometimes you end up having to duct tape together a whole bunch of different programs so that you get the end result that you're looking for. And that's why sometimes you do want to go that route, because there's certain pieces you need. And then there's other times where you can have a kind of a one size fits all solution that'll work for you. The other thing is, going back to what Lori was talking about, we use a 3-step process: plan, assemble, and then execute. and plan has to come first. If you are going to just try to wing it doing marketing automation, you're going to end up with quite a mess. You really have to look at what Lori said. You look at what the end result is that you want, what the goal is of what you're trying to achieve with that. Plan that all out. And I've always been known as the flowchart queen. I flowchart everything out so that I can see, oh, if this happens, well, what's going to happen? So it's a lot of if this, then that. We really want to think through all of the different ways that things can go. So plan, assemble, then you build all the pieces, and then of course execute. You turn it on and then test. I should add a fourth one that says test, 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 monitor for results.
Sounds like it's very consistent across marketing as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Round one there was very much focused on kind of the high level, right? Better understanding. So let's dive a little bit deeper here. Tamara, what's the difference between a contact list and an email list?
I think I should write a blog about this and just
no
have
question.
this be my year-long message to everyone. There's a big difference between a contact list and an email list. The email list is specifically for marketing. They are interested in learning more about your product and your services. Usually there's an offering of information, and that's why they're on that list. And so you have permission from them to send them offers, to send them discounts and services, and just let them know about that to purchase. Your contact list is really your network. It's a list of those people whom you've met either like through networking meetings on a one-on-one basis. They've given you their contact information so they can have some dialogue with you. It's not so you can market to them. That's a huge difference. And so what I've seen as a colleague and a consumer is people will take your contact information and just move it to your email list because it's easier to do it that way. Don't have to filter and ask people. But I mean, there are a lot of disadvantages to doing that. One is it violates the compliance of what is the GDPR compliance, which is a European policy, but yet we are slowly adopting that here. And if your marketing, your information is global, it's something that you still have to pay attention to. I believe California has a similar policy as well, and it really guards consumers from being spammed, essentially, is what it is. So that's one reason why you shouldn't do that, shouldn't cross your contact list without their permission. The second is if you do that and they spam you, then you run the risk of trashing your email account. So after so many hits, Google will say, you know what, this is a bad business owner or someone who's kind of seedy. We're not going to let their emails land in the inbox. It's going straight to spam, and you don't want that to happen. And then it's the overall your reputation. It harms your reputation with your network. So if you're spamming, because you are essentially spamming someone, they didn't give you permission, and you send them that marketing, well, I mean, they can talk behind your back. They'll say something, and you don't want that. So it's just best to ask and keep your contact list separate from your email list.
And it sounds like it also kind of comes back to like that human element that Scott spoke to a little bit as well, right? We all get those spammy emails where you can just tell like there's not that genuine touch behind it, right?
Exactly. So I know it can be complicated sometimes if you have a lot of funnels and things that are going out, but just, making sure that you ask people if they're interested in this information, or just letting them know, send them the link where they can sign up on their own. I mean, you'll just keep your contact list separate from your email list, and everyone will be happy.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, Scott, something that I'm sure a lot of people are interested in here. How does a business incorporate an e-commerce or an additional third-party tool into their marketing automation strategy?
Yeah, absolutely. So, this is something that I've kind of specialized in, especially here at SharpSpring, is connecting third-party applications, particularly e-commerce. And a lot of the questions, are where do we even start with that? To kind of add on again to what Laura was saying, working backwards is always the best way. Understanding what is the goal, what are you trying to do with the information that you get out of transactions? When it comes to marketing and marketing automation, generally there's no more solid piece of information than you have other than what somebody's actually converted on. So any kind of sale, that's right there is kind of concrete information about their interests, how they go through processes. So then really it comes to be a point of figuring out where that information is going to live within your marketing automation system and how you're going to act on that. So for example, in our system, what I usually recommend people do is create opportunities, which are kind of child elements of the actual contacts or leads in the system. And then you can use that to automate or remarket. So basically taking people, kind of coming up with your spectrum of what categories you want to organize people into. Sometimes you're not going to be able to do, super granular if you're selling thousands of products, but just coming up with, maybe just a whiteboard system of how much ambiguity you want for those categorizations, and then coming up with those automations saying, these are my categories, adding people to lists, and then understanding what the flow is as well from that. Obviously, once somebody makes a purchase over the next year, you might want to, retarget them with pieces of information, sales coupons, but you also do have to understand that, after a year, perhaps you're maybe outside that window of when you want to continue contacting someone about maybe previous transactions. And then, just getting that information into the system. I'm a huge proponent of tools such as Zapier, which make it really easy to connect, third-party utilities into whatever marketing automation platform you're using. And then, like I said, just kind of coming up with the holding system first, the organization first, and then executing it and getting that information into the system.
So it's kind of a high level follow-up question, but you made me think of it. Do our tastes as consumers change over time?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think we can all personally attest to that, and that's something as well, being agile in how you communicate with people. Sometimes, coming up with the things that are going to be persistent to an individual versus things that might be, just for a brief period of time. So, seasonal things might not contribute to marketing throughout the rest of the year. If you're talking about something like a Christmas gift that somebody purchases that's specific to the holiday, versus something that, this actually shows that they are interested in this type of product. Obviously looking at things like repeat purchases as well. So anything in that method as well, kind of understanding what, counts as something that's just like a temporary interest versus things that you can actually use to continue to nurture and segment off of.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a really good kind of segue into your question, Melissa, which is, why is it important to have a defined sales system? And then, how can that be automated?
Yeah, back in the day, sales and marketing were two separate silos. They usually didn't get along. And they had different objectives. Now, they really need to be part of that same team because it's hard to tell sometimes where one leaves off and the other one starts. So going back to my flow charting thing, if you can flow chart out or build a pipeline more or less of the actual sales process that you have, each one is different. For instance, ours is built around an appointment, kind of a first discovery call, strategy call, whatever you want to call it. But that appointment is really what we're shooting for. So everything that happens prior to the appointment, that's marketing. So if they're downloading my free ebook or taking my free course or something like that, that's putting them on that pipeline or that flow chart that shows that they're interested. They're kind of sort of interested. And the goal is, the marketing then is to get them to book the appointment for us. Now, this could be completely different for somebody else, but that once that appointment is booked and held, what happened? Do they need to be nurtured further? Did they say, nope, not interested, not at all? Did you get the sale? And it's really looking at the sales process you take people through and then determining if they say, no, I'm not interested, what should happen? Or if they say, I'm interested, I'm just not ready yet, what should happen? There should be some sort of nurture process that they go on where they're nurtured over a period of time. So it's really flow charted out first and then look at if somebody jumps into my pipeline here and and they take some sort of action, what should happen next? And then that is that if this, then that type of programming that gets done. Did that answer the question?
100%. I absolutely would, without question, agree that it has. And
Okay,
then,
great.
it kind of leads to the last question that I kind of have for you, Lori. We've been talking about automation, how it compares to CRMs, how to even get started, why it might be complicated. Scott dove into third-party tools and e-commerce and things like that, but it all kind of leads us back to the same place in how is, marketing automation measured?
Another fantastic question, Will.
Nice. Sounds like I'm coming back for a fourth.
Yeah. And my answer is going to be very much the typical marketing professional answer, which is it depends. And the reason that is the answer is because it really comes down to what is the goal that you're trying to achieve. As you alluded to, well, we covered a lot of different things. I mean, Melissa was talking about appointment-driven activities, and Scott was talking about retargeting and remarketing people that have already made a purchase. So what is the goal that you're trying to achieve? And the beauty of all things the internet, and this is why I love this space, is that you can literally measure anything you want to measure. But understanding what the goals are and then saying, what do I need to measure that's going to help me know and understand that I am indeed on track to achieve this goal, or to help you make an intelligent business decision that says, this isn't working, I need to make some changes. Those are the things you measure. So is it email open rates? Is it click-through rates? Is it people visiting your page? Is it people clicking on your ads and whatnot? I mean, really, it's figuring out what is it that you're trying to achieve, and are you achieving it?
Awesome. Yeah. Hashtag it depends. So we totally agree that
Yeah,
I've been with
Susie.
Keystone Click
Hey,
a
Susie
few
Moon.
years, and yeah, I've become accustomed to the it depends, but I love the support that comes in after that, right? And and it does, without question. It goes back to what Melissa said as well, where you have to test, right? The idea around A/B testing and things like that. You have to test, and you have to have your goals in place, and then that is where that measurement really comes out of. So that's wonderful. Thank you. So now's a great time to kind of transition from good questions, but I'm out of them. I'll be honest, I have none left. So it's actually an opportunity for you guys as our panelists to ask one another a question. So with that, Lori, I'm going to kind of turn it over to you, and I believe you have a question for Melissa.
I do. Melissa, how else can a business nurture their audience besides just using email?
Such an important question, because as many of us have alluded to, this is a relationship business. And if we get too cold and robotic with our automation, we're missing the point completely. So we try to look for different ways that we can I'd like to call it warm automation, so things that are warmer. So for example, texting, having two-way texting, not texting marketing messages, actually texting and having conversations with people is a big thing. We also include voicemail drops, which is a very simple way of putting a message in the software. And for instance, we use a voicemail drop the day before the appointment. So the day before the appointment, the person looks, they've all of a sudden got this voicemail message, and it just says, "Hi, it's Melissa. You're on my calendar for tomorrow. Looking forward to spending time with you." That's all automated. I only record that once and it goes out, but it's just that warm touch. And then we've integrated a number of different direct mail things, but there's a local gal that most of us know, Jamie Shibley, and she has a service where her artist will design a card, and then all we're doing is saying, "Oh, I got a new client," so I tag new client, and an email and a text goes off to Jamie's company saying, "Send my new client card to this person at this address with this message." She then takes it, her group then takes it and handwrites the message, stamps it, and mails it. These are all these warm things that just aren't normally done. I mean, we all want to do this, but we don't get it done. And so by allowing technology to take care of that piece for us, we make sure that those things get done. And it's just a much warmer process.
Cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Good shout out for Jamie there as well. Gonna have to
Yeah.
let her know about that. That's wonderful.
I tell everybody about her. And then it looks like I've
Absolutely,
got a
yes.
question for Scott. Scott, are you ready?
Oops.
How does business apply the concept of A/B testing to automation and workflows?
Yeah, and awesome question. Lots of answers to it. I think this kind of follows up on what we were just talking about with, all the amounts of data that you can get out of marketing automation. So I think currently we're in a time period where a lot of these softwares have found a way to get you all the data you need. They don't necessarily always make it super clear about what to do with that data. I know a lot of the questions that I get when I'm working with clients is, how is this person using this data? What does X company, Y company do? And while, I understand that question and it's important to know kind of the environment that you're working in, a lot of times it's important to also focus on what you're doing and realizing that what you have to do is really what measures against what you have been doing. The same solution for, a small market business is not going to be the same solution that a large corporation that's doing, 20,000 deals a day is going to be doing. And A/B testing in general really allows you to kind of measure yourself against yourself. Typically, it's talked about in terms of emails where you're sending, 2 emails, 3 emails, you're trying to see how they perform, measure them against each other. And then you basically select the winner to be the email that gets sent out. But a lot of those kinds of concepts can also be used and leveraged in other parts of marketing automation. So things like workflows, like you were saying, flowcharts, the kind of if this, then this logic doesn't necessarily have to be just one single branch. It can be multiple branches, and you can use, I'm going to drop some terms here, things like dynamic content. So if you're able to use dynamic content in your emails and your landing pages that you're setting up, being able to provide different clusters or different segments of your lists, a different experience, and then being able to identify and measure that against a specific conversion goal that you're going for, you're going to start to be able to find correlations, internally about how you're doing things. Are people more likely if they fill out this form to provide this piece of information, which will help them, be able to serve them in their conversion goals? So really trying to cater your own A/B testing beyond just emails, using multiple versions of web pages, multiple versions of different workflows with small tweaks. This also ties into things like multi-touch attribution, where you can take a look at 5 different events that kind of contribute towards your end result, and then you can use different models to apply that value. So looking at that information really just so you can kind of always be improving your processes. Cool. And that's all I got on that one. I think it is my turn now to ask
Right.
Tamara.
You left us speechless, Scott.
With this group?
Bow! That was a mic drop.
Ooh, I don't actually do have mine. But yeah, so Tamara, my question for you is, when would you say a business should begin to look at investing in a marketing automation system?
That's a great question, and a very popular question. And so much like Lori stated before, it depends. There are a lot of variables and different things that you should think about and evaluate as a business owner. One thing to absolutely understand or remember is that automation magnifies. So if you do not have a process or your process isn't efficient, it's going to magnify that. It's not going to make it better. It's just going to make it much more transparent, obvious to your clients and really to the marketplace. And so there's a level of commitment and understanding about what it takes to go on this journey and see it through. So much like Scott mentioned, there's some experimentation involved. So that means it's going to take time and effort. There's also, we're talking about being very intentional and deliberate so we can deliver the best experience possible for individuals based on where they are in the buying process. So being able to match your messaging and the information and insights you provide for people in your funnels will need to also match where they are in that stage of process. Do they know they have a problem? Do they understand that it's a problem? Do they understand that the problem is big enough that it should be resolved? Like taking them through that level and giving them the appropriate information to help them move through that process to be ready to buy is essentially what a funnel should do for you. And that's something that takes time. It takes time and it takes expertise. So do you have the time? Do you have the resources? Do you have the support, the help with building that out? And do you actually need it? There are some people who have companies where, they have 12 clients in a year and that's all they need. That's not, then a marketing automation may not be appropriate for your needs. You can easily get the amount of clients through referrals, through other ways. So just being able to evaluate those things and understand what is needed in order for it to be successful is really what you should do before you jump into marketing automation. Okay. And I have a question for Lori.
Lay it on me, girl.
All right. So how does social media tie into marketing automation?
It's a good question for Lori. Well, social media is a tactic of marketing, so it definitely makes sense that it ties into the bigger scope of marketing automation. And some platforms are built specifically for that, for automating your social media. But what I love about some more sophisticated platforms is that you're tying in your social media automation to what you're doing with your nurturing and your emails and the bigger picture scope of that automation. So then you can really get a bigger understanding of how your contacts are engaging with your content beyond just email. So if you're scheduling your social posts from your automation platform and someone is engaging with your post on Facebook and they're in your system, you're going to see that they've opened your emails and they're engaging with you on social media. So it's really allowing you to see the whole, the big picture of how your contacts are engaging with your content versus having siloed, segmented platforms. Now, the negative is that not all social media platforms make it easy to integrate with those automations. So some are a lot more flexible and have really nice APIs so that you can easily, send content. Others have limitations. So like, I'm really big on LinkedIn, but if I want to schedule something on the platform, it will not let me tag an individual or a page. I have to manually go into the system and do that. Instagram lets you schedule, but you have to manually push the post to the platform. So there's definitely some limitations with it. And I imagine over time, either the systems will open up and allow for it, or maybe it'll make it a pay for platform to some degree. But there's definitely benefits to integrating the social media into the bigger picture marketing automation. Great question. Thank you.
Awesome. That's wonderful. Thank you guys so much for coming up with those questions and really kind of diving into it. So I have one last question for each of you. It's going to be the same question that you will all answer. Then we will take a moment to really kind of dive into our Q&A. A number of phenomenal questions have already been coming in throughout our conversation here today. Now would be a great time if you have any additional questions to throw them out there. So my last question to all of you, and please just take a moment to answer each of them, to answer it, is going to be, what is your number one best practice or tip to share in marketing automation? And then after you've shared that little tidbit of information, if you don't mind, take a quick moment to let us know about the offer that you are presenting to everyone that's in attendance today. And I will share that URL. It is keystoneclick.com/automation. I'll share it in the chat once more. So again, Melissa, why don't we start with you? What is your number one best practice or tip to share in marketing automation, and then conclude with the offer that you have for our attendees today?
I would say the number one thing is start. It may contradict other people, but it starts small. Start with something that you can build quickly, measure, and experience. I think a lot of people start their first entree to automation is Calendly or some sort of calendar program where it's like, wow, that was nice. I didn't have to spend all that time going back and forth and look, my calendar's getting all booked up. That when you experience that, you suddenly start getting, okay, that's what automation's all about. So start with something. I say it's like building or remodeling a house. You don't remodel your entire house all at the same time. You pick one room, usually an important room, and you start there. So start with something that really makes a lot of sense to your business, but that you can get your arms around. I see so many people go into these really complicated things right off the bat, and then they give up halfway through because they're not seeing the results because it's taking too long to build it. So get something out there, experience it. My giveaway today is a workbook on how to plan out your email campaigns. I can't remember what I called it. Go figure.
This is good. Leave them in suspense.
Yeah. You'll have to see what I have to give you today.
Right.
But it is a workbook where you literally work out, let's say 12 different emails and how you can make sure that you get those. Again, I'm plan first and then assemble. So.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you so much. Tamara, let's move on to you then. What is your number one best practice or tip to share in the marketing automation and your giveaway?
Oh, crankies. I was thinking that was the first thing, like start small.
I was
that was
so now
mine
that's
as well.
taken,
All
right.
So what's
I
your
mean, I think
second best
everyone,
practice?
Yeah.
So my second best practice is to really look at your business challenges first to see what is taking the most time and how much time can you get back if you were to automate that. But it should be something where you already have a process for it. It's just taking you forever, and find ways to automate pieces of that process. So it may not be marketing automation. It may be the onboarding process. So if it takes forever for you to send out those invoices or for you to write up the agreement and all those, find ways to automate that first so you can save time and get that back. And then think about the bigger picture of how can automation not only improve your work and your productivity, but how can it make your customer experience effortless, seamless, easy? So it should be a win-win situation. Oh, and so my giveaway is a chance for you to test and understand the gaps you have in your CRM system. So if you have a CRM system and you're not using it, or you don't have one and you don't know where to start, how to select and sift through those systems, you can take this really easy 4-minute quiz, and it will give you a layout and help you find those gaps and challenges of things, so you can move forward.
Awesome. Very good. That's wonderful. Thank you so much. All right, Lori, we're going to move on to you here next. Scott, we'll let the women go first. So Lori, I know we've covered one, possibly two, continuing to build off of all of the great information we've had so far. A tip to share in marketing automation.
Absolutely. Great pieces of advice, Melissa and Tamara. I agree wholeheartedly with both of those. But one of the things that I think is often misunderstood is that it's not necessarily a set it and forget it. you do have to consistently evaluate the information and the content that you are pushing out there, because times change. As Scott said, everyone's flavor palette changes occasionally, and that's why A/B testing is so important. You constantly want to be updating that information to be relevant. It is still time saving because you've got the majority of the process built out, but it is not a true set it and forget it. The only way that you're going to be improve, you want to constantly improve is really what it comes down to.
Perfect. And an offering from you?
Oh yeah, not necessarily, well, it's not a freebie, I should say, but it's a fantastic offering. We've got a 2021 content marketing workshop series that's going to be kicking off here shortly. There's going to be quarterly. We're going to get together and you're going to meet with me. We're going to do a 30-minute session. I'm going to educate you on a very specific topic related to content marketing. And then 90 minutes, we're going to do workshop style and working on your content marketing strategy for the next quarter. And I'm going to hold you accountable to actually getting that done.
Wonderful. The best things in life aren't free, Lori. So that's great. All right, Scott, I know it's tough. You're batting cleanup here. A lot of great, advice and tips already out there, but the floor is yours to share your tip in marketing automation.
I literally had the words "don't set it and forget it" in my head all ready to go. Now that all the best answers have been taken. I would say that my number one tip, on top of all the other great ones that we've had, would be to think about quality over quantity sometimes. There's an idea when people are looking at, say you send out 1,000 emails, or you're trying to set up someone for some sort of conversion, that 1,000 emails and 1,000 opens is exactly what you're looking for. And obviously we do want people to engage with our content as much as possible, but it's also important to remember that an open is not always an open. The more you set yourself up with your things like list segmentation, and this also goes into questions we get all the time, is how can I send this offering to every single person in the database that we have or in our CRM? And people on the other end of that process will get marketing fatigue. The more people see emails, the more desensitized they will come to it, no matter how good your marketing is. So you want to be very calculated. You want to understand that sometimes getting, if you send an email to 100 people and 10 people open that email and those 10 people convert, that's better than if you send an email to 500 people, none of whom are interested, and all of which, just, okay, I see it in my inbox, but I'm not going to click on it. So kind of understanding that concept where it's not necessarily all about, quantity, that you'd rather sometimes deal with smaller lists and higher conversion rates. And then, my offering, it's more of a name drop. I definitely recommend anyone who's interested in learning more with marketing automation, specifically SharpSpring, where I work, go to sharpspring.com, and you can always select there to book a demo. We also have trials as well if you kind of want to try getting your hands dirty in marketing automation.
Awesome. And all those, again, can be found at keystoneclick.com/automation. All right, let's get into the Q&A. I want to make sure we get to a lot of these questions that have been coming in, which have been great. Some of them are directed to a couple of panelists individually, but the majority of them are kind of going to all of you. So Lori, I have one coming to you from Steven here. What might be some of the ways business owners can get past the mental block of thinking they don't have enough or valuable enough content to share within a marketing automation system?
Great question. And I love this question because I feel like that mind game, that mental, I don't know what the word is that I'm trying to get, but at the end of the day, it's a head game, and we do have to get over that. And once you get over that hurdle, major things can happen. And one of the things that I think is the easiest way to look at this is when you're in your business, has anyone ever asked you a question? I mean, at the end of the day, there's a reason they are asking you this question. It's because you have knowledge, you have expertise that they do not have. So unless you've never been asked a question in your life related to your business, you have valuable content to be providing. So put it out there and let your audience know that you're the expert and you're the go-to for your area of expertise.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Pat has a question, and I do believe, some of you talked to it a little bit, but I just want to get back to it. Maybe just, have one of you pinpoint this. Tomorrow, I actually believe you kind of spoke to it a little bit, but he says it sounds like a couple of the panelists, either have their own software solutions or work for companies that have marketing automation and CRM solutions. And he's just kind of curious, how would you guys recommend anyone to really kind of sift through all of these available options and solutions that are out there?
Absolutely. I do this all day because I'm actually CRM agnostic. So I'm not affiliated with any particular company or brand. And so I look at systems and suggest them based on the company, their needs and their challenges. So that's the first place I start. I always look at the company. What are their needs? Where are they experiencing the most pain? How does it all fit? And based on that and their work habits, I look at systems. So the first way I eliminate systems is find out what type of CRM system they need. So when I say that, it's really understanding what CRMs are known for. There are a lot of all-in-one type systems, but they usually have a known for, like Salesforce. They have marketing automation. They have all these bells and whistles, but they're known for sales automation, right? So understanding that first and saying, okay, I need one that's really good in sales, or I need one that's really good in marketing automation. All the other things are great to have, but not necessarily at this point. I can grow into that. So understanding that will eliminate hundreds of CRMs right away, right? So the goal is to get it down to like your top 10 and then go from there. And that's one of the ways, but it's really based understanding what your challenges are and matching those with the type of capabilities you need from your CRM system. And then you go from there.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much. Scott, I've got one coming to you here in just a second. So I'm going to throw this to you, Melissa, and then, again, encourage others to step in as well, because it's kind of a doozy. What is the question's coming from Brad? And his question is, what is the biggest risk to automation?
I saw that one, but I was thinking, what is the answer to that? The biggest risk, I guess it goes back to trying to overdo it. And it's kind of like chatbots. We've done some chatbot work, and it can be really dangerous because the minute that person goes off script, that all falls apart. You say, do you want to book an appointment? The person says back to you, I can't, my mother just died. And the chatbot replies, great, let's find one for next week. That can happen in marketing automation as well. And so it goes back to keep it simple. You don't have to build this monstrosity of a campaign or anything like that. You've got to keep it within boundaries so that that you're achieving it, and that you're not going to just go completely off the rails with some of the things that can happen with marketing automation.
Oh yeah. Well, just a real quick story in terms of automation. It can definitely become a distraction to the extent of people pivoting their business, going in a different direction because of the system and the funnels they have set up and how they're doing it. So I've seen that happen, and I've also witnessed a young lady who, I don't even know if she got her business off the ground, but she was following this guru who talked about funnels all day long, sexy, sexy, sexy. And that's all she wanted to do, but she was not making any money. So she technically was not a business, but she still wanted to make these funnels. So it can really distract you to the point where you're not even moving, you're stuck. So that's one of the biggest risks I've seen.
Awesome. No, that's great. Thank you so much. All right, Scott, I've got kind of a two-parter for you here. So the first one's coming from Spencer, and Spencer works in automations. He says mainly workflows all day, every day. So, and he's wondering if there are any aspects of a workflow that you recommend making small tweaks to. He realizes it might be kind of a broad question because there are so many triggers, actions, filters, delays, etc. But he's just curious if there's any insight, on any areas that would be good for tweaking.
Yeah, definitely a great question. Definitely a lot that can be talked about there. And I think that this ties kind of into the last question as well about, keeping things simple. And one of the things that I think as well is it's a risk of marketing automation is having processes that are occurring where you don't necessarily know, or maybe they're going beyond what you want them to do. You don't know where the data is going to. So with that in mind, personally, and this is one of my best practices that I use. So in our automation system at SharpSpring, we have the ability to create tasks as well as a kind of as an action along with any other actions that you have. So if I'm ever creating any kind of automation where, maybe it's a new workflow or automation that I haven't really been able to test, and sometimes you do have to test things live to get information back, always leaving some sort of paper trail or human, something that basically prompts you, sends you a little notification. I love to create myself tasks, letting myself know. Maybe down the line you can remove them once you're confident the automation is kind of fulfilling what it's supposed to. But don't be afraid to create some sort of human notification system that lets you know, okay, they're at this part, this part where you're unsure whether you're sending too many emails. So if there's a part where you want to inject human interaction into your automations, create something like a task, anything that basically alerts you to what you want to make sure is running correctly. So that's one thing. Another as well is starting kind of broad and then narrowing in once you understand how your segmentation is working. So this kind of goes back to e-commerce as well. Sometimes if you have lots and lots of products, if you're able to, you might create custom fields to capture that product information. You don't necessarily always have to use, filters of equals this exactly. Sometimes you can use includes to start figuring out, numbers based on keywords. So you can say if it includes, and then maybe like a certain product variation or a keyword that they're working with, instead of equaling exactly, seeing how those numbers are. And then you kind of will start to learn from the information you're getting out of those when you add people to lists based on that information. Okay, here's a specific phrase or, some kind of thing getting submitted in a form request that we find is very common. So then we want to narrow in on that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. I've got one last question. Scott, I'm going to direct it at you to begin with, and then kind of just a broad closing statement for everyone. So, Scott, this question, what is, or is there, a right balance between teaching and selling to your list? And then last, Susie is kind of curious about just evaluation, how often you should be evaluating, whether that's monthly, daily, or quarterly. So I'm going to kind of, Scott, let you begin this conversation and then have everyone give kind of their closing statement to kind of wrap up today's panel discussion.
Yeah, and that's a deceptively, seemingly simple question, but yeah, there's a lot to kind of unpack there. I would say that, a lot of this depends on how much you believe in what you're selling or teaching to your lists. If you are passionate about what you are trying to communicate as in terms of information, a lot of times it is marketing. So there is some sort of sale or conversion on the other end of that. But the more that you understand it and the more that you understand the lists that you're trying to teach, the more teaching and selling does kind of become, blended right in the middle there. Because if you're really passionate, if you really feel strongly about what you are teaching somebody, especially if it has that conversion, you're not really trying to push someone to make a purchase or a conversion. You're trying to give them enough information so that they come to that decision on their own. So really, I would say in a perfect marketing world, your teaching is going to be so, coming from a place of wanting them to know because you believe in it, that it will end up becoming a sales process as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And then, yeah, Melissa?
One thing I would add on to that, I thought that was great, Scott. For us, we only work with coaches and consultants, people in an advisory role. So for us, somebody isn't really even qualified for us if they don't already know who their ideal client is and that they already don't know what their core offer is. So if you are very clear on your ideal client, then those messages should be really tailored to their questions and really honed in on their problems. And so while you can be teaching and educating, you also want to provide the solution. And I think that's kind of what you were saying too, Scott, is you want to mix it up. You want to provide both. But I think, I can't remember who was talking about it before also, was you don't want to just send everybody in your email program the same messages. So you really want to use segmentation around problems and who those ideal clients are.
Absolutely. And I think we had the second part of that question as well. All right, Tamara, if you were about to answer it, go for it.
Yeah, when it comes to EML marketing, a lot of times I look at, it's not just about the money. It's about what else. How are you positioning yourself, and what type of feeling and experience you want to create, right? So if it's, I'm creating a community and I want to do these things, then you more than likely would offer more education, more information than selling, because you're trying to create more than just convert people to clients, right? If it's also you're working to create authority and all these other things besides that, those are things that you want to evaluate before you start creating some type of offer or frequency of offerings in your email marketing. So that's something to think about moving forward.
Perfect. Lori, anything to add to close us out?
I'm more interested in answering the question about the evaluation.
Go for it.
There. Okay. The one that Susie asked, how often do you evaluate?
Please do.
I think that's a great question, actually. I've got a little story to share about our own evaluation. We had a list that we hadn't sent too much messaging to, but we're trying to warm it up again. It was about 250 contacts on that list. And instead of just sending it out to all 250, we segmented it into smaller buckets, did some testing with the first, I think it was like 15 email addresses, and then evaluated what happened after the entire automation series ran, and then tweaked it based on those results. So I think it depends on the frequency that you are pushing messaging out there, as to how often you should be evaluating it. So if you are on a daily level, then you probably should be evaluating what's happening on a daily basis. But if it's more monthly or bi-weekly, I mean, it's probably more in alignment with the frequency that you're pushing messaging out.
Awesome. Well, I tell you what, we're going to end today's conversation there. This was just such a great experience, even for myself. And I want everyone to know that our panelists here are available, and they've provided, like they've said, their offers, but they've also provided ways in which to get in contact with them so that you are able to really continue the conversation. Hopefully today was you starting small, and now you use it as an opportunity to continue to build from there. So again, for offers, for information, to hear and read more about our panelists, please go to keystoneclick.com/automation to find those resources and offers. And then also, if you would like to continue to learn from us here at Keystone Click and would like to learn about more future webinars that we have, you may also visit keystoneclick.com/webinars. Enter your information, and there's a good chance you'll be entered into one of our own automated systems, which is wonderful. Panelists, thank you all so much for your time and your insight and your expertise today. I'm so grateful to be able to facilitate today's conversation. I wish you all well. I wish you all a very happy holiday, and we look forward to the opportunity to touching base, cross your fingers, possibly in person in 2021. Awesome.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Bye,
All right.
everybody.
This
See
is a
ya.
lot of fun.
It was. Thanks.